This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
With the situation being quite serious, could you tell us why you made the decision not to make the masks mandatory in public spaces?
It's something that needs to be considered really delicately, because you put a pressure on citizens, and with other measures that should accompany that. We're not at that point. I think that we could manage to get through this with the recommendations that have been said by the minister. And with that in mind, I think we'll get through.
That is Dr. Luc Boileau, our public health director, and steam was practically coming out of my ears listening to that presser this morning. I don't understand why they would deliberately not include daycares in schools. And then I read Jim Mennie's little sentence that you write here for us, Jim, and you want to defend Christian Dubé, and you say, yes, you read that right, so please.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a 10 o'clock press conference, and I figured, well, what in God's name was he going to announce of any importance? But I figured, something told me just tune in and listen to it. Mm-hmm. And it was utterly expected, and the issue of mandatory masks came up. And, we've had the discussion on the show over the past few weeks, and the thing is, people won't go back. You can go out right now. People aren't wearing a mask. There are still people out there who are wearing masks in various situations, but I was intrigued because, on the one hand, he is, and Christian Dubé, no matter what else you want to say, we've been critical of a lot of things that he's done.
Sure.
You can't say he hasn't at least been frank in what he's doing. And, between him and François Legault saying, as I predicted, there's no way we're putting masks, making them mandatory again. All that said, there was one little throwaway line, which I think really isn't a throwaway line. I think is the crux of what is going on here. Because, we've been talking about COVID-19, but now we're talking about what they described as this spicy cocktail of viruses. It's flu season. We used to have flu seasons. We didn't for the past 2 years because of the pandemic. Everybody was getting jabbed. Everybody was confined. So the flu explosion never really occurred. But one thing that Christian Dubé said today in terms of wearing a mask, they're recommending that you wear them in stores. They're recommending that you wear them in crowded situations, in situations where it's a high traffic area. And he basically said it's really a citizen responsibility. It's a civic responsibility. And I know that sounds kind of naive, but I got to tell you, in 4 months, it'll have been 3 years since we first heard of COVID-19.
Oh, God, yeah.
If you haven't figured out by now that COVID-19 doesn't have legs, it doesn't have a brain, it gets around because of you and me, or what we do or what we don't do. If you haven't figured out that this virus hangs around because people continue to spread it, and it's an airborne virus, and it is easily catchable or spreadable in situations where a lot of people are just breathing around each other, then I think you haven't been paying attention for almost the last 3 years. And I think we are at the point now where a lot of people went out, I got my shot, I got my vaccination, and that was raised as well. If you're due for a booster, by all means, go out and get one. But I think at some point, given that I really don't think COVID is ever really going to go away, it's always going to be there the way the flu has always been there. Maybe we should ask ourselves some questions. And remember, I'm not on a soapbox here. Mm-hmm. I loathe wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. I absolutely detest it. I think my threshold is about 1 hour. And even though I guess when they, as crazy it was to travel, the one thing that really kept me from traveling anywhere was the idea that I would have to wear a mask on a plane because my head would explode. So I'm not saying, it's easy. It's not easy for a lot of people. But you know what? Having your kid in an ICU isn't easy for a lot of people. And when they say, there's an influx in children's hospitals, remember, don't, when you hear children, think of, someone who's aged, 5 to 10 to 15. We're talking about newborns. We're talking about infants. We're talking about little people who, by their they're the definition of defenseless. Never mind, reduced immune systems or whatever. These are the most vulnerable people in society. And yes, there is a direct link between your decision temporarily wear a mask in a crowded situation, going to the grocery store or whatever. And that little person's being in hospital. You may not like the change that I'm making, but it's a very real one.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, when you have a government minister and people, he's avoiding responsibility. Not really. You can't, first of all, compel people to get vaccinations, which, others would say, well, if everyone was vaccinated, this thing would just die out. They'd have no place to go. But the reality is it's about prevention. And I really think that with all, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people haven't made sacrifices, but if you can keep a handle on this, and not just COVID, but the flu, whatever, by wearing a mask in a particular situation,
yeah.
I don't really see how that's a reason to go climbing up the curtains and, as we say in these parts, tearing at your shirt. I don't think it's an abrogation of government responsibility. I think the 300-pound gorilla in all of this is the fact that whether it's the kids' hospitals or adult hospitals, the healthcare system in Quebec has been held together with spit and bubble gum for the past 50 years.
Sure has.
And it can't take any heavy lifting. It can't take any heavy pounding. And right now we're in a situation where that could occur. So, yeah, my hat's off to Christian Dubé for at least saying out loud what I think more people, and not just politicians, I think more people should at least take to heart that we too have a role. Even if you've never had COVID, even if you've abided, well, you stick with it, because those numbers, even though they have dropped precipitously, we're nowhere near where we were in the blackest days of the pandemic. But the fact is, we don't want to start another forest fire with influenza or the various respiratory viruses that are circulating and targeting mostly children. So, yeah, by all means. And anyway, I
would like free flu shots.
Refreshing as opposed to the, because in the past, when François Legault has mentioned this, he's kind of pleading, I know, but I would plead to your better nature and your indulgence. And he's basically, and I think Christian Dubé called it as it was today. That is our collective responsibility.
I'll give you that.
To take care of each other.
Okay, I will give you that. I'll give you that. You know what else I would like, though? Free flu shots. Like, come on, that's a great. I mean, I don't understand why Quebec.
Well, he kind of opened the door to that.
Mm-hmm, when he was asked the question.
He was asked about it, and he acknowledged that there was a certain amount of illogic there. That is, this is one of the few jurisdictions in Canada where you get charged for your flu shot. I know some companies give them to you for free, but all that said.
But that's, I mean, knowing that we don't and other provinces do, I mean, that's just not acceptable, especially given our situation. Hey, listen, I want to squeeze in this last topic just before we run out of time here. So the 3% solution, Legault, just in time for Christmas. Is this about the Hydro-Quebec bill? Is this about the cap on the
Hydro-Quebec bill? Hydro-Quebec you're going to see in 6 months' time.
This driver's license?
It's a traditional news story where, as of January 1st, all these government fees go up. Well, they have slapped a 3% ceiling on it.
Yes.
And quite frankly, I think more people will be sensitive to that than they will to their $400 or $600 check that they'll be getting just in time for Christmas. And once again, at least the government is taking far more tangible steps. This 3% ceiling, by the way, is it's going to cost the government about $3.5 billion, which is the amount that it's costing them in terms of handing out those checks. So you can't say they're not doing anything. But once again, it's something I think people will notice when those bills come due. So will it soften Mr. Legault's image with Quebecers? I'm not entirely sure about that. It certainly won't hurt it, and perhaps in the long run, he might get used to the whole idea of keeping those costs under control.
I like that idea a lot, and I like talking to you. Thanks for your time, Jim. Talk to you tomorrow.
Adama.